Yes, Judy, you want to dedicate the learning?
Yes, three family members of mine, not serious, but still in need of refuah shalema. And then somebody who's a friend of somebody. Anyway, I'll tell you the names. We were expecting to have a Shabbos together at our daughter's,
Oh, right. You told me.
but unfortunately, our granddaughter went skiing with her father, our son, and she broke her leg in two places. So her name is Shira Bat Minka. And her big sister, Natalie, Sarah Bat Minka, she has the flu. So our whole Shabbos together isn't coming. And our son in law in West Orange, New Jersey, Yonatan Zev Ben Sheva, he has some kind of virus too. So
Are you postponing it for another time, Judy?
I hope so. I certainly hope so.
Yeah, I know you were so excited.
The other, yes, the other person who is a friend, he was a co-soldier together with our great nephew in Israel. He is very badly burned when a Hamas detonated by remote an explosive, and his name is Yehuda Ben Leah Rachel.
Wow. What's his full name? Like what's his Yehuda what? What's his last name?
I don't know his last name. But there was like a nace within the tragedy, and that his another friend soldier was carrying explosives right in front of him, and had the explosion that befell this Yehuda first hit the friend with the explosives, it would have been a much worse tragedy.
Wait, I don't know. Oh, if it had hit them,
Yes,
the
the
one with
one
the
who carried
explosives, then
right.
yeah.
Right. So it was but still, he's
Oh, he's so
very,
painful,
very badly burned. Right.
in danger of his life.
I didn't ask details. It's very critical.
Hey, okay. Thank you. Hard and thank you. All right, maybe lirefuatam, maybe,
Amen.
yeah, may they have healing. May everybody have healing in particular.
And one more, a friend of mine, my personal trainer, physical therapist, her brother, she's not Jewish and neither is her brother, but he is anticipating having open heart surgery on Tuesday. Norberto, the son of Linda.
May it go well. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
We are in chapter 9 of Megillat Esther, the scroll of Esther. You could bring Hebrew, English, any language that works for you. There's something I say that you don't understand, please make sure you tell me. Elaine, welcome. Which Elaine is it? I don't know. Carol Ashinsky, welcome from Florida. Robert Moshe, welcome from gorgeous downtown Lakewood, or at least that's what it looks like. Looks beautiful. And Lance is set in Ir David or Migdal David, which is stunning. Stacy, welcome. Judy, Karen, and Estelle. Love having you here. And we are moving our way towards the end of Megillat Esther, which with a focus on anti-Semitism, but not only. We've spent a lot of time talking about anti-Semitism in the Megillah. And Haman is now dead, so, we don't have to focus on him so much. Okay, we are in chapter 9, verse 3. And if it's something that people weren't here last week and I remember something, I will mention it. Verse 3, okay. Well, let me just roll back to a synopsis of what chapter 9 is all about. That chapter 9, I'm trying to think of how to qualify, not quantify, but like give a title sort of to chapter 9. Just trying to think. The Book of Esther, page 62. I think he had a nice thing.
Said Haman the Terrible on the email today.
No, that's the name of the Haman the Wicked. Anti-Semitism is an old trope. That's the name of the class. That was the whole class, which we started a year ago with some breaks for the summer and for special programs.
Okay.
But so we're on chapter 9, but that's okay. You didn't have to, if you know something about the Felice, if you know something about Megillat Esther, but let me just see. I had something underlined here, just a minute, in this book that I liked about chapter 9, page 62. Okay, page 62. So I don't know if we would call this Purim because this chapter is all about the holiday of Purim. Why do we call it Purim? What do we do for it? Why do we do it? I guess that would be, if I had to give a title, which is not something that we did until now, but I said to you at one point that I found chapter 9 can feel boring. That's what I said. It's long, it seems to be repetitive, less boring when you learn it inside, I think. But I think I would call it that, the holiday of Purim. I think that would be my title for chapter 9. And let's see if it proves itself, if it holds water as we go through it. So the first two psukim, I'll just read them in English so that we remember them. In the 12th month, the month of Adar, remember we spoke about that in the Torah, that the first month of the year is always Nisan, which I think Felice gave us the answer, because we might imagine that Tishrei would be the first month. Who else? Somebody else remember what the reason was that the first month is Nisan and not Tishrei when Rosh Hashanah happens? Who remembers the reason? Robert Moshe.
Nisan is the first month of the Jewish people.
Right, good. And Tishrei?
Is when the world was created.
Nice, beautiful. So Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year, but for the whole world. Whereas Nisan, the month of Pesach, Passover, when we have the Seder and we celebrate the freedom from Egypt, as well as becoming our own nation, that is the birth of the nation of Israel as a nation. So it's always counted from Nisan, and they're 6 months apart from each other. So if Nisan is month number 1, month number 12, not counting a leap year, which, by the way, I think according to the calculations, they think that the year that Purim happened was a leap year, which is kind of cool to even think that they were doing leap years then. The 12th month is the month before Pesach. Now, everybody here knows that Purim is exactly 1 month before Pesach. Everybody knows that, the 14th of Adar, and then the 14th of Nisan is Erev Pesach. So if we're counting the month that's before Nisan, it would be Adar. Everybody with me on that? That's just to place it in the calendar. In the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day, when the king's command and edict drew near to be put into execution, on the day that the enemies of the Jews, there you go, anti-Semitism, right there, where it says, Oivei HaYehudim, who is the enemy of the Jews? What did they do to anybody? Well, they didn't have to necessarily do something. It was just anti-Semitism, hatred.
Is that how they got the word oive?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
That's how they got the word oive.
I don't think so. Because first of all, very cute, Judy. First of all, oive in Hebrew means oivim shel.
Right.
Enemies of. So it'll be a little weird, Sternard. I think that I don't know what vey is. It's probably like bye, why, woe is to me.
Right.
And oi is just, oi, you hurt yourself.
Right.
But it's cute that you said that. So thank you for putting a smile on everybody's face. On the day that the enemies of the Jews that hope to have power over them, it was reversed, that the Jews should rule over those that hate them. Everybody with me? That is verse 1 of chapter 9. So you can see, really, we're going to be leading into the holiday of Purim, because until now, it was the story of Purim, what actually happened. Now, it's moving from the story of Purim to what do we do to commemorate it? Why today, so many years later, do we have Purim? The holiday, the rabbinic holiday of Purim. Verse 2, the Jews assembled in their cities throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus to stretch out their hand against those that had sought their injury, and no man stood before them, for their fear had fallen upon all the nations. So somebody had asked me last week if the Jews initiated or just defended. Somebody asked me that. I don't remember if it was Estelle or somebody else. And according to this verse, it does seem that they were defending. Yeah, Felice.
Oh no, I remember that. I was just
Oh, you remember that you said that?
no, that it was said. I don't know if I said that. Not sure.
Okay. Okay, so that's where we're up to. For their fear had fallen upon all the nations, and we talked about that. Why did their fear fall upon all the nations? They were a small crowd. They were dispersed. What was it that made the nations fear them? Any thoughts? I think we spoke about that a little bit last week.
Yeah.
So somebody had an idea about that? We think it's because the edict that came out and because Mordechai had such power, he's now second to the king. We know that the queen is a Jew. So the two people who are literally closest to the king, who are they?
The Jewish Mordechai and Esther.
Yeah,
Mordecai and
exactly.
Esther. Mhm.
Thank you, everybody, for chiming in. Thank you. Now I know you're listening.
which is a miracle. And
That's the benafochu.
our enemies sometimes get scared of us when they do see miracles. And
Oh, that's nice. Oh, I don't think we
Yeah.
mentioned that last week. That's really beautiful. That really adds to what we said. It's not just according to what Karen is suggesting. It's not only that they're in high command. And once you know that the king loves the queen and the queen is a Jew. But what Karen is suggesting is that people saw, can I say it a little differently?
sure,
People maybe saw Yad Hashem, the hand of God, because they see miracles like, wait a minute, the Jews have been hated and trodden upon or trod upon. Ooh, good word, trod upon. And there was an edict to kill them. And everybody was allowed to just, I think of the scene from, anybody remember from Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first one, where somebody pulls, I don't know, they pull a sword and he's standing there and doesn't know what to do, but then he pulls out a gun and kills him, right? So I don't know why that popped into my head, but that's what it feels like. I can just kill you whenever I want. That was what they said. 13th of Adar is open Jew killing day in all of the 127 provinces. Kind of crazy, right? Like that's really what it was. That's the anti-Semitic, solid anti-Semitic part in there, that people would be willing to do that. Yeah, Felice.
Yeah, I was gonna just say that. I was just thought when we were talking about, like why people fear Jews of the 6-Day War, because a lot of people didn't even think Israel would be able to survive, and they won the war in such a short time.
Right. So that goes to what Karen said, that it's when something is miraculous,
Yes.
they
No.
seem to believe in God or in some gods, and they believe there was the God of the Jews. So like, okay, tide has turned. By the way, this is really nice because it goes so beautiful. Thank you. I love this class. Wait 1 second, Felice. Remember what Zeresh and other Haman's advisors said. First, they said, when he said, I hate Mordechai the Jew, he doesn't bow down to me, he doesn't give me respect. And they're like, no problem, make a gallows, go to Achashverosh and ask him, right? But what happened when he came back? Avel v'chafoy rosh, is that what it was? When he comes back after his daughter, according to the Medrash, she dumped garbage or chamber pot on him or something. And he had to lead Mordechai in the streets and say, this is what you do for the man who the king wishes to honor. So what did they say? If you have started to fall down or descend in front of him, meaning in front of Mordechai the Jew, you're just going to continue to descend. Meaning they believed in Yad Hashem, in the hand of God. They believed that if a nation, if a people, if they are doing well, they believed that there was a reason that the Jews were following God and they found favor in God's eyes. And if, hello, Camelia, and they felt that if they said, you're never going to make it. Once Mordechai has started to get the upper hand, once the Jews have started to get the upper hand, Haman. Yeah, Felice.
Now I was just thinking, did Zeresh say at one time, if Mordechai is from the nation of the Jews, then it's not going to be good for you?
No, that's not it. Yes, but that's not exactly what she said. What she said was what I just said. First, she said, he's from the Jews, no problem. Obviously, the Jews are in trouble.
Right.
Gallows. But when he came back and said, well, I had to pull, he told them everything, he had to pull Mordechai. She said, if he's from the Jewish people and he started getting the upper hand, it's not that she said that it's from the Jews. It's that he's from the Jews and you have started to fall in front of him. It's the two together.
Yes.
So it's not enough to say that. So yeah, I alluded to that. Maybe I didn't say it straight up. Okay.
No, I was just thinking that she herself realized there's probably something special about Mordechai, not just that the king likes it. Possibly.
No, it's not that there's something special about Mordechai. It's more that they believed, looking at history, that the Jews sometimes found favor in God's eyes and sometimes not. This is an actual direct line between Jews are doing good, God is good to them. Jews are doing bad, God isn't good to them, which is something we should maybe believe, but it's a little harder for us to believe that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So moving along, maybe these are the reasons. Thank you for all for contributing what you did. Maybe that's why nafal pachad hayudim aleihem, that they were nervous and fearful of the Jews because they saw the Jews are getting the upper hand, so they're a little scared. So I think that was a great read, that they saw the miracles. I'm going to write that down because it's so beautiful. They saw the miracle. What happened to my lid? There you go. Saw the miracles. Okay. Great. All right. So let's go now to verse 3. Verse 3. Okay, so we spoke about the fear of the Jews are on the people. Now let's see what else the Megillah is going to tell us. And all the rulers of the provinces, Sarei Asar, remember Asar in Israel? Asar is a minister or a ruler, I guess. And the Achash Darpinim. I don't know where that word is. It's not a Hebrew word. It comes from another language. In English, it's called satraps. Who knows what a satrap is? I don't.
I don't know.
The Achash Darpanim, though, are, whatever rulers, some other kind, governors, whatever they are. Somebody can look up satraps. Stacy, would you look up satraps, please? I have no idea what that means. And the governors and the superintendents, ooh, great words. Hapachot ve'osei hamelacha. Oh, that is so cool. A superintendent is somebody who does the upkeep of the building, right? Isn't that what a super does? In Hebrew, it's osei hamelacha, the one who does the
work.
Really cool way to translate it, of the affairs of the king. They elevated the Jews. Minasim et hayudim. They elevate the Jews. Why? These are the people, by the way, in Shushan Habirah, the ones who are in the capital city, the ones in Washington, D.C. kind of thing, the ones who are hanging around, hovering around the president and Congress, all those people, because the fear of Mordechai was on them, because those who were in Shushan Habirah, Mordechai was right there, and he's number 2 to the king. The ones who are in the other provinces, that was the fear, it sounds like, of the Jews in general. Okay, we got that? Good. What did I do? Verse 3, the fear of Mordechai. Okay, we can continue. Verse 4, feel free to ask questions or comment if you have one. Why? Now it explains why they had a fear of Mordechai. Ki gadol Mordechai b'beit hamelech. Mordechai is great, or was great, in the king's house. And actually his fame went out to all the provinces. What did it say, sir? Hope this is it. Satraps. All right. Oh, well, it looks like.
Well, I see it.
What is a satrap? The satrap was in charge. I don't even know how to pronounce it.
How do they spell it?
Satrap. Satrap. No, it might be satrap. The satrap, Satrap, as in Peter. Satrap was in charge of the land that he owned as an administrator, found himself surrounded by an all but royal court. He collected the taxes, controlled the local officials and the subject tribes and cities, and was the supreme judge of the province, before whose chair in Nehemiah every civil and criminal case could be brought. He was responsible for the safety of the roads and had to put down rebels. All right. Oh, and he was assisted by Council of Persians. Oh, this is specifically Persians. Cool. All right. Well done. Thank you very much. That was very helpful. Now we know. Okay. And that makes sense. So all the different levels, let's call it the different levels of government. For the man, Mordechai became greater and greater. So according to one explanation, his name instilled fear and his name became great. Okay. Felice, can I put you on mute? Hi, Steve. Put you on mute, please, because you're making some background noise. So, hey, verse 5. Vayaku haYehudim b'chol oivehem. So remember, we're on the 13th of Adar. This is the day when the Jews are allowed now to fight back against their enemies, and they smote all their enemies with the makat cherev. That's a stroke of a cherev, of a sword. And then hereg ve'avdan, which says in English here, slaughtering and exterminating. Vaya'asu b'sonehem kirtzonam. They did to their enemies as they wish. So I don't know if that means as they, the Jews, wish, or as the enemies wanted to do to them. I think it could be either one. Let's see what it says here. It says here, no fight, no battle. The Jews literally killed wherever they went. Ugh. That feels a little harsh, but okay. All right, this is, okay, so again, we're describing now the nafochu, the reverse that happened, that the miracle that, well, there were many miracles that happened along the way, but this is the overt miracle that happened. All right, let's go now to verse 6. Wait 1 second. Give me a second. Oh, so here's an explanation that not that they did to the enemies kirtsa. Oh, the question is, why does it say vaya'asu b'sonehem kirtsonam? Why does it say they did to the enemies as they wished? I just said you could read it 2 different ways. It seems superfluous because if they had the upper hand, obviously they did as they wished. So why did they do that? You know what? There's a story here, but I don't think it's necessary for me to read it. One second, sorry.
Is it vengeance? Could it actually be vengeance?
Which word?
I hate to think that vengeance, just that's why they did it. I don't know.
Oh, so that came up last week. So who can answer that? What do you think? Stacy is asking, was that vengeance? We talked about that a little bit. Any thoughts? Was it vengeance that the Jews killed their enemies?
Of course, I mean, but it also, it's a little harsh.
Wait, vengeance for what?
For what their enemy tried to do to them, annihilate
When
them.
did they try to do it? Let's picture the scene. It's now the 13th of Adar. The Jews prepared themselves. They had 6 months or whatever, 7 to prepare themselves. Did anybody attack them before the 13th?
Good
No.
point.
No, nobody attacked them before the 13th. So what are they taking vengeance on? They might want to take vengeance on Achashverosh or Haman, but they can't actually take vengeance on somebody who hasn't attacked them yet. The only day that everybody was allowed to attack them was this day, the 13th of Adar. Apologies, give me 1 second. I have to answer something very timely.
That's did the Jews do that? Kill in anticipation?
Right.
Well, I think we discussed that last week. That's not what the text says.
Yeah.
1 second. Sorry, I have to answer somebody very timely. I really apologize. Okay. I think that we have to imagine the scene. The Jews are anticipating. They're all armed. They've been practicing. But why are they armed? What's the difference between the 13th of Adar and the 12th of Adar? Who can describe that? It doesn't say what happened on the 12th of Adar. This is our imagination. Nothing happened on the 12th of Adar. 0. 13th of Adar, from the stroke of midnight, the king allows anybody who wants to attack the Jews and kill the Jews. So the Jews are defending themselves. I don't think it's vengeance. I mean,
How can you defend yourself before you're attacked?
correct. So on the 13th of Adar, those who attack them, they defended themselves. That's exactly correct, Estelle. And it says that to stretch out their hand against those that had sought their injury. Only those that sought their injury, that's what they did. That's what it says in the Megillah. It doesn't say and I think the edict also says that they're allowed to defend themselves. That's what they're allowed to do, which is weird. Like, originally they weren't allowed to defend themselves. What would they have done? Just sat there and allowed themselves to be slaughtered? But I guess when somebody has fear, so then that makes it easier to retaliate. But I don't see anywhere in the text that it's about vengeance. I don't see anywhere in the text that the Jews initiated. I don't see it. If you see it, I'd be glad to hear. And when it says they smote all their enemies, how do they know who their enemies are? If somebody's in their house, they don't necessarily have a, from the river to the sea, or a Magen David with a line through it, right? They don't necessarily have something on their window that says, I hate Jews. I mean, they might have, but right. So their enemies are the ones who want to kill them. That's who their enemies are. And that's who they are defending themselves against. The way they defend themselves, is by killing those who want to kill them. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, why should they let them live? If somebody comes at you with a gun or a sword, okay, they didn't have guns then. They have swords. If somebody comes at you with a sword, you probably want to kill that person so they won't kill you. So it does feel very much like defense. Okay. And I'm happy to hear otherwise. I'm looking at the text. But I feel like something is bothering people here.
For me, it's kirtzonam. What does that mean, as they pleased?
Okay, so so I'm going to do, okay, Lance, say what you want, and then I'm going to read the mashal.
Okay. I think this is called a preemptive strike.
Right.
And it's completely legitimate in the sense that if someone is if they're building their armies and they're ready to go, and you hit them first, then that's defense, not offense. Preemptive strike.
But what is I know strike as in not strike as in.
No, strike when that you were not been attacked.
How do you know they weren't attacked? That's what I'm not understanding. How do you see that?
I'm trying to define what you're talking about. I don't think, personally, I think that Mordechai's rise to a position of great power is analogous to Joseph's rise of a position to great power. And both the Megillah and Genesis have what we call an upward arc. In other words, you go from very bad to very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but thank you. I appreciate that, especially since we're reading about Joseph. But is that connected to whether the Jews were on the offense or the defense?
No, the only way I think I would justify that is by going along.
What would you justify? What?
Pardon me?
What
would you justify? Justify the theory that the Jews have the right to do what they're doing.
Which is what, to defend themselves?
No, the only way I can justify that is by going with scholarship today. Scholarship today sees the Megillah as written by Greeks, and the Jews are simply a front for Greeks. The Greeks hated the Persians.
Wait. We were talking about whether the Jews were on the offense or the defense. Does that have to do?
I'm talking about the Jews were Greeks. The Greeks were using theWs as a false self. Just as
I'm very confused.
Shakespeare uses Shylock.
Wait. This feels very far from the text. Can you put it? I
am very far from the text. That's the way I operate. I'm academic.
Okay, but it's a little hard. That's okay if we want to dedicate a class to that. I feel like that's hard for me to follow the logic when we're talking about whether the question on the table was, were the Jews on the offense or defense? That's what I wanted to state.
But all I'm saying, my original point was there is such a thing as a preemptive strike. And if you say that the Persians were going to attack the Jews had every right to attack the Persians. And you could also argue that the Jews were afraid that the Persians would kill them even after Haman was dead. Maybe Haman's sons would decide that they were
Haman's sons were killed.
Okay, they're children. Their sons.
Okay, so hold on one second. So you're saying either way it's justified. I was asking, is it in the text? So I want to read to you an interesting mashal. Mashal is a parable. Ready? So the question was, as we said, they did as if whatever they wanted, Bisonehem, their enemies, those who hated them. What does that mean? So is it that anything they wanted, they dallied with them, they tortured them? Karen is asking, what does that mean? So that question is in this book, and they have a parable. A wealthy father who had an only son whom he loved very much instructed the executor over his estate. When I die, give my son as much as you want from the estate and keep the rest for yourself. Okay? That's what he said to the executor. Give my son as much as you want from the estate, as much as you want, and keep the rest for yourself. The greedy executor kept 95% for himself and gave 5% to the son. No surprise there. The son, very upset and unable to believe that this was really his father's intention, called the executor to a beit din. That's a rabbinical court. The rabbis listened carefully and ruled that the executor was to give 95% to the son and only 5% to himself, flipping it, explaining to the executor that the father was a very wise man. What were his words? Give my son as much as you want. You want to keep 95% for yourself? That's what you should give my son. Give him whatever you'd want to take for yourself, and whatever is the rest, keep for yourself. Since you demonstrated that you want 95%, that must be the amount the father wanted you to give his son. And this is a parable. What do we learn? It's so clever. With the seemingly superfluous words, the Megillah is telling us that Vaya'asu b'sonehem, they did to their enemies, kirtzonam, and the wishes that the enemies wanted to happen to them. Their enemies wanted them to be killed. They did to the enemies, and they were able to kill them. Okay. I wasn't going to read it, but the truth is, I loved it when I read it, so I'm glad I could share it. And now we're getting to Pasuk Vav and Zayin.
Can I make a comment on Kirsonam?
I'm sorry, what?
May I make another
Yes.
Kirsonam? It kind of reminds me, just like in the Birkat Kohanim, when you say Ken Yehi Ratzon for the Bracha. So is this possibly the Hashem is the Ken Yehi Ratzon? I know that it's not exactly correct because of the Am, instead of.
Well, the thing is, it's from the same root, Judy.
Right.
So you don't have to make a play on words for this one. Kirtzonam is just a different way of using the word ratzon.
Right. So
as their wish. Amen, ken yehi ratzon means it should be God's wish, but that's in the singular. So it's not really a play on words. You don't need it.
Okay.
It's just a different variation on the root word ratzon, will. It should be God's will. It should be their will. It was their will. It's just the same word.
Okay, we can't say that this whole episode was Hashem's will.
Of course you can, but that has nothing to do with them. I mean, you could always say that.
Right.
We've been saying that God orchestrated behind the scenes, but not because of that word. I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay. Uveshushan Habira, and in Shushan, the capital, Hargua Yudim, the Jews killed, ve'abed 500 ish, slew and exterminated 500 men. Wait, let me just check. 6. Okay. And now from 7, 8, 9, what do we read there? We read the 10 sons of Haman.
Mm-hmm.
So they killed 500 men plus 10 more men. Parshandata, Dalfona, Spata, Porata, Adalia, Aridata, Parmashta, Arisa, Yaridai, Vaizata, the 10 sons of Haman, Ben Hamdata, who is the son of Hamdata, I guess, Tzorer Hayudim, the person who was the
Tourist.
Yeah, the adversary, it says here, of the Jews, Haragu uvabiza, lo shalchu et yadam. They did not reach out their hands to keep the spoils. They did not take money for the spoils. Okay. So first of all, one second. Does anybody know the minhag, the custom to say all of these names in one breath? Anybody heard of that?
Yes.
If you've ever
I did.
You heard of it, Lance? So if somebody's laning the Megillah, this is what they do. They do. ואת פרשנדתה וטלפון ותספתה ואת פורתה ותדלי ואת הרידתה ותמשת והריסה את הרידי וזאת החסרת בני המן בן המדתה. So
I've
they
never
try to
heard
do
the Megillah recited without that being done.
Right.
right. So some people do it. So here's the thing. Some people think you should recite it that way, but then they forget to do the trup, the singing. I don't actually have the trup in here, so I don't remember it by heart. But really, you're supposed to sing it with the trup, with the cancellation notes. Why is it that you're supposed to recite them in one breath? What is the reason? There are probably many reasons. But one of them from the Gemara is that they were all killed or died in the space of one breath, meaning as if 10 different places, 10 different Jews smote and killed all 10 sons of Haman. Hello, Carol. All 10 sons of Haman at the same time. And then it says, but so they killed all these people, but they did not stretch out their hand to the spoils. Now I have a question for you. Do anybody remember what happened to the 10 sons of Haman?
They were hanged, no?
They were hanged. Where do you see that here?
Sure. Or
Oh,
good.
it's a.
Haragu.
Aragu.
They were killed.
Right.
Where does it say they were hanged? Isn't that interesting?
Right.
Thought that they were hanged with Haman, right? But it doesn't say that here. I'm saying like sometimes we remember narratives, but it's not the actual narrative.
Doesn't it say
right.
above, Rabbi Bracha, if
Yeah.
you go a couple lines above, doesn't it say that Esther said they were going to be hanged?
Where? Show me. I'm not saying it wasn't. I just don't see it.
Now,
And in the
the
previous,
king ordered that it be done so, and a decree was given in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons.
where?
It's right above.
What verse?
Tell me the chapter and verse.
I have a Chabad version, and no verses.
Oh,
I'm
there are
looking
no
at the Chabad
verses?
version.
Do you have a Bible at home?
Yeah, but
Well, pull
not
out the Bible.
available.
You'll see it. I'm
Esther
looking.
said, if it
Isn't it
please the
12?
king, let tomorrow too be granted to the Jews to do as today's decree, and let them hang Haman's 10 sons in the gallows.
Yes, but where is that? Is that in a previous chapter?
No, it's in chapter 9, I'm sure.
Well, then we haven't read it yet.
It's
because-
number 11.
Okay, so we haven't gotten there yet.
Oh,
No, it's not in 11. It's
No.
not.
it's not 11?
Nope.
But it's in the text.
No.
No, I didn't
But
say it
what-
wasn't text. I said they weren't killed by hanging. They haven't been hanged yet. They were killed. I'm just like undoing that fallacy that they were killed by hanging. Who was killed by hanging?
Haman.
Haman.
Haman
But
was.
no.
I just
No.
wanted to point
Now
that.
the king ordered that it be done so, and a decree was given in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons.
That is in verse 14. But in verse 10, they were killed. They were not hanged yet.
Wait.
That's what I'm pointing out. They were first killed by the sword, and then they were hanged. So we're going to get to that. I just don't want people to think that they strung up Haman and the 10 sons at the same time and killed everybody. That's just not according to the text.
Isn't that over? I'm sorry, but isn't that overdoing hanging somebody who's already dead?
Great question. So when we get to that, let's find out why that was done. Let's hold that question till verse 14. Okay. What else in verse 10? Anything else for me to say? 1 minute. So the Gra, the Vilna Gaon, who we actually have read a lot of his commentary. He has a huge commentary on all of Megillat Esther. We could learn the whole Megillat Esther just according to the Gra. The Jews did not touch the money of the 10 sons of Haman. Remember, they didn't reach out their hand to the spoils or anyone else, even though Ahasuerus had said that they can. The edict said they're allowed to. But why? Because they didn't want Ahasuerus to be angered and say that they had only killed the Persians because they wanted their money. And this is in spite of the fact that the edict said they could. So you know how it works with anti-Semitism. Even when we do what we're supposed to do very often, we are held accountable. So the Gra reads into it, well, the Jews could have easily become rich this way because it was allowed. The king said you could do it, but they didn't do it. They did not want it to look like that's why they did
Jews
it.
love money and
Yeah,
this-
exactly.
Yeah.
Feeding into that narrative.
right.
Yeah, exactly. My friends, you have to give me 1 minute break. I will be right back.
It's possible that the contradictions in the text are the result of the text not being edited or edited properly.
Well, I was wondering, why would all 10 sons be guilty? Maybe only 9 sons would be guilty. What if one son didn't agree and had no right to be hung or slaughtered?
But
I mean,
why would you think that? I mean,
I don't know.
could be
I'm
right,
only
but-
asking. I'm only questioning. I mean, they just assumed that because it's Haman's sons that all 10 are guilty. I don't know.
Estelle, that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, what you're doing is you're rewriting the Megillah.
You're right.
It's
Right.
good point. Excellent point, I think.
Well, the Megillah was written a few years ago, and they had their own way of doing things, I guess. But our problem is that we shouldn't accept everything as is written. That's always been my contention.
Well, but you can if it's fiction.
We don't know.
Paradox of literature. There's a paradox of literature, which
Well,
means that we treat fictional people as though they're real.
This is mostly fiction. I mean, it's a good story.
Right.
What were people
How could
talking
all these
about?
people be killed? It's impossible.
Okay, what did somebody wants to share about the conversation while I was in the next room for a minute?
Well, I was just questioning why all 10 should have been hung. What about if 9 were guilty and 1 wasn't?
So here's the question, Estelle. It looks like they were grouped together with the people who were killed, who were their oivim, who were the enemies. So I'm assuming they came out with their swords. That's what I understand, because it specifically says that the Jews killed their enemies. So it's not just because of that, it's because they actually were their enemies, that's what caused it. Okay, I had a thought also. So I have a question for you. You go into wealthy noblemen's homes and you have every right from the king to take their money, to take their gold, I don't know, and silver platters. Maybe they had other things that were worth a lot of money in their homes. How easy do you think it was for the Jews in all 127 provinces for nobody to take any of the spoils? It feels like
You believe that? You don't think there was anybody who was sort of...
Look, that's always the question if you believe the text. The text says, "Uvabiza lo shalchu et yadam." I mean, either we believe the text or we don't believe the text. So if you don't believe the text, then there's many things we wouldn't believe. So I'm not disagreeing that it's possible. But if you remember, there's a story in the time of Shaul, I think it's in time of Shaul, there's a story that they were out of favor with God. Some people got killed. Why? Because one person had taken one vessel of gold, one thing. And it took a while. And they used lots, by the way, to figure out it's this tribe, this family, this person, right?
Yeah.
So I think what happened was the leaders of the Jewish people, whether it was Esther and Mordechai or every single, said, nobody takes spoils. This will not be good for the Jews. Now I want to say the Jews were going to be killed that day. So maybe they said, well, it's worth it for us not to take because maybe it'll get us out of favor with the Achashverosh and it's not worth it. I'm just saying, I feel like it's just a hard test kind of to be under when you walk in and it's there for the taking. You could take that wallet full of $100,000, right? I'm just pointing it out as people, how hard it is just to be a Jew then and now.
You're right.
Right.
Always keep in
No,
mind.
I concede.
Yeah.
I concede.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet. Okay.
For me, it just works better because after the word annihilation, I just needed that to say
A little bit of,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to say I learned the book of Yoshua in my Hebrew class one year, and it was really hard.
It is
Hard to read about how the Jews killed to take over the country. It was not easy to read. Like I just accepted it. Oh, hi, Elaine. I just accepted it when I was a child and I learned it. But reading it with the eyes of a 21st century person, and it just feels harsh.
very tough.
Very.
Now, I don't know how, I would read like historical, like Rav Benny's books, things like that, Rav Benny Lau, to try to understand better how it worked in those times. It was very bloodthirsty in those times. Like it was kill
Oh,
and kill. That is what it was like, and that's very difficult. And maybe the Jews felt we lived here first and we deserve it. I don't have a good answer for you about that. I believe they did offer to the nations to become sub-nation, to be subsumed under them, but
Rabbi Baruch, I have a
that's
question.
another
I hope is
conversation.
relevant. I
Yeah,
have a
Lance.
question I hope is
Sure.
relevant.
Okay, we'll
In the
find out.
book of Joshua, Joshua and his company sacrificed the Paschal lamb. However, there is no mention whatsoever of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. How is that possible?
Wait. Is this about Purim?
You talked about
Pesach,
Passover.
Passover.
You talked about,
did?
right?
When
You
did I
talked
talk
about
about
Adar.
I did about Adar, yeah.
Or you
I
so you brought
explained
up
why
you
Adar.
opened the door.
No, I explained why Adar is the 12th month. I didn't speak about Pesach. I just said that it's a month before Pesach, so therefore Adar is the 12th month. It was
But you
just
brought up the book of Joshua.
well, I brought up the book of Joshua because people here were saying how hard it is to see that people they killed so many people. It feels bloodthirsty. So I said also the book of Joshua, it's part of our history, and it's hard for us to see that the Jews were so bloodthirsty. Now, asking me a random question about the book of Joshua and Passover just doesn't feel related to what we're talking about.
But it is related because as I pointed out to Estelle, Estelle had a marvelous point. How did you know that the 10 sons, all of them, were guilty? It's all in many situations, you have very bad people, and one of the sons is a good guy. I think that's true of
But I
sin.
answered from the text.
But where
And
is it?
I did concede, Lance. I did
Also, I
concede.
think the question is valid, but I answered through the text.
Yes.
Right. But what I'm saying is it's perfectly legitimate
We
not
don't know.
to answer in a text, provided that you understand you're rewriting the text.
Okay.
Isn't
In
that
this
what we're all
class,
doing?
I'm not
We're
planning on
not rewriting.
I'm not doing that. You might want to teach a class where you rewrite the text. I'm not interested in doing that right now.
I would get ChatGPT to rewrite the text.
Now that sounds like fun. Okay. Bayomahu, I'm on verse 11. Let me just see, is there anything else? Verse 11. Okay. Yes. Another question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask something.
Yeah,
I mean,
please.
say something. I think that this reminds me of that Yetzias Mitzrayim. Isn't it true when the Jews left Egypt, they didn't take any of the spoil? Isn't that something?
No, opposite.
They took everything.
Oh,
They
they were
took
able to
gold
pay.
and silver.
Oh, yes. I think right.
Okay, thank you. So on verse 11, Bayomahu, on that day, the king found out how many people were killed in Shushan, the capital. And in verse 12, Bayomar Melech l'Esther Malka, he said to the king said to the Queen Esther, is this what he said? Yeah. He said to her, quote, B'Shushan Abira, in Shushan, the capital, Hargoy Yudim, the Jews killed Abed Chamesh Modish and exterminated 500 men, and the Aseret B'nei Haman, in other words, 510 actually altogether. So he knew about this because he got word of it. Bish'ar Medinot HaMelech me'asu. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? There's no punctuation, so we have to add punctuation. Uma she'latech, and what is your petition? V'yinaten lach, and you will get it. Ma bakashatech od v'te'as. What else do you request? And it'll be done. So 1 second, let's think about this. We have a few minutes left. Let's just finish with this. See, 500 men were killed, and the 10 sons of Haman. What else do you want? So that feels odd. Why would the king say that? Like, if once you think about it, it feels very odd. The Gemara says that Achashverosh wanted to say that he was flabbergasted. If they could kill so many people, including prominent people like Haman's sons in the capital city of Shushan, probably in the rest of his land, who knows how many people are being killed? Of course, he never said that when all the Jews were going to be killed. He wanted to say, stop now. But his words came out differently. And then almost against his will, he says, what else do you want? Like, it's so odd. This reminds me, by the way, of Bilam. Bilam, the prophet, who wanted to curse the Jews, but every time he ended up blessing the Jews. So again, we can see the hand of God. It doesn't
Yeah,
make
I mean,
sense.
he's not only saying, what else do you want? He's saying, and whatever it is, it's going to be okay. I will fulfill it.
Exactly. And that's like so weird, right?
Yeah.
I just actually want to go to the next verse only because I want to answer Estelle's question. And I don't want to leave it hanging till next week. But Tomer Esther, so Esther answers, if it's okay with the king, also tomorrow, the Jews should have the opportunity in Shushan, la'asot kedat hayom, to do the same thing that they did today, mean to continue to fight back. I guess she saw there were more people who were trying to kill the Jews. And what else? She had two things. That's one. The second, can we take the dead bodies of the 10 sons of Haman and can we hang them from the tree? Even though they were already dead, this is one person's interpretation, Estelle. She asked for them to be hanged. Why? Specifically to show that Haman and his sons were conquered, because they are the ones who tried to exterminate all the Jews. And the Targum Sheni, which is an Aramaic translation, but remember, a translation is always a commentary, said like this: how many amot? Remember how many cubits high it was? Who remembers? Oh, bye, Stacy. Hope you come back. How many? Remember how many cubits high the tree was? 50. So it was the first 3 amot were in the ground for support. Then each person had 3 amot and then an empty amma. So like 3 amot for Haman, then an amma, that's 4, and then another 10 sons. So that's 44 amot altogether, plus 3 in the ground is 47, and then there's a little bit on top. That's how they used the whole 50 amot, so that each one of the 10 sons were clearly displayed.
Wow.
Bracha,
And one second. Who's calling? Who is that?
Elise.
Elise, hold on one second, please, Elise. Esther told the people who came to complain that their bodies were left up, that they actually have to hang forever, sending a message that the reign of the anti-Semites is over and they were publicly shamed. Let's remember, they wanted to kill all the Jews by lands. Nice of you to come. They wanted to kill all the Jews. Let's not forget that. I mean, we might think it sounds like, but they wanted to kill all the Jews. Okay. Let's chew on that.
Wait,
I know, I want to chew on that, but in the next pasuk, it says, the king ordered that this be done.
Yep.
So he
agreed.
He agreed. Show the dead bodies.
Yeah.
Bracha, I just wanted to ask, were women included in this too? Did they kill women or just men?
That is such a great question. A great question.
Any commentary? I never saw it. I don't know.
It's so interesting. Previously in the Megillah, there was something about women, but I can't remember what it was. Let's see if we can research that for next week.
Great.
It's better
Thank
to be
you
left
so
on
much.
that than on the picture of the tree.
Right.
All right. Thank you, everybody. This is,
Thank
I want
you.
you to know, as I said, it always feels like chapter 9 is a little boring. It doesn't feel boring to me anymore.
Doesn't feel
It's just
boring at
No.
all.
learning it with you. I'm appreciating sending love. And remember, for Tu B'Shvat, we're not up to Tu B'Shvat. It'll be in a month because we're now about the 15th. I just saw the full moon. I'm excited to prepare something interesting about Tu B'Shvat. If anybody has
Wonderful.
requests about what you'd like to learn, I haven't prepared it yet. So I haven't thought about what I want to teach. I've taught it different ways. If anybody has a request, feel free. And then after Tu B'Shvat, I think, is when I'm going to start Tehillim, I think.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Have a
day,
good
everybody.
week.
Bye.
You too.
Good week, but thank you.
You're welcome.